Disney's Snow White remake is on the verge of becoming one of the biggest controversies of the year, and it hasn't even hit theaters yet. From radical changes to the classic story to explosive behind-the-scenes drama, this film is making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Today, we're breaking down everything that's gone wrong with this project. Can Disney salvage it? Or is this movie destined to crash and burn before it even premieres? Stay tuned for the shocking details. Walt Disney Studios is no stranger to controversy, but their latest live-action remake is quickly spiraling into a full-blown PR nightmare. What was supposed to be a simple reimagining of the beloved 1937 classic has instead become a lightning rod for criticism. From drastic changes to the storyline and characters, to the rumored tensions behind the scenes, Snow White seems to be sinking before it even sets sail. Disney is scrambling to contain the backlash, but at this point, it might already be too late. One of the biggest sources of controversy? The casting of Rachel Zegler as Snow White. The decision has left many fans of the original film scratching their heads, and despite efforts to frame it as a progressive step forward, it has only fueled the growing skepticism surrounding the project. Disney has framed Rachel Zegler's casting as a step toward greater diversity in Hollywood, but her portrayal of the iconic character has sparked backlash for straying too far from the traditional representation of Snow White. This decision has ignited a heated debate about authenticity. Should a modern adaptation remain faithful to its roots, or is reinvention necessary? But the controversy isn't just about Zegler's casting, it's about how Disney has reimagined the entire story. The film's version of Snow White makes significant departures from both the 1937 animated classic and the original brothers' Grimm tale. For example, Snow White is no longer the innocent, passive character audiences remember. Instead, she's been rewritten as a fierce, independent woman who refuses to let anyone save her, a clear attempt to update the character for modern sensibilities. While some see this as a positive evolution, others feel it strips away the original character's charm. Even the plot itself has undergone dramatic changes, altering key elements that made the story timeless. From the enchanted forest to the iconic poisoned apple, Snow White's magic has been reshaped to fit a more modern narrative. While some argue that reinvention is necessary to keep the tale fresh, others believe these changes come at the cost of what made the story beloved in the first place. Many fans feel that Disney is losing the heart and soul of Snow White in an attempt to cater to today's political and cultural climate. While the studio frames its changes as a modern reimagining, critics argue that the magic of the original tale is being diluted for the sake of contemporary messaging. But the controversy doesn't stop at the story itself. Behind the scenes, tensions between cast members have only fueled the film's troubles. Reports suggest that Rachel Zegler and her co-star Gal Gadot, who plays the evil queen, were not on the best terms during filming. While Disney has not confirmed these claims, the rumored lack of chemistry between the two actresses has become a hot topic among fans, adding to concerns about the movie's overall execution. Beyond internal drama, Disney is also facing backlash from critics who claim the film is pushing a political agenda. While the company has long championed diversity and inclusion, some argue that Snow White takes it too far, accusing Disney of prioritizing modern social messaging over the integrity of the classic story. This isn't the first time Disney has faced such criticism, but the backlash against Snow White is louder than ever. In an effort to defend the film, Disney CEO Bob Iger recently released a statement insisting that Snow White is not about politics, but about reflecting today's world with a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. He emphasized that casting Zegler as Snow White was intended to offer a more inclusive take on the beloved character, and urged audiences to judge the film on its own merits rather than on false narratives or misleading criticism. However, Iger's comments have done little to ease concerns. In fact, his admission that the film strays significantly from both the Brothers Grimm story and the 1937 animated classic has only further angered longtime fans who feel Disney has abandoned the essence of Snow White altogether. Many fans believe that Disney is disrespecting the legacy of the original Snow White, and Iger's statements have only reinforced those concerns. By openly admitting that the changes were intentional, he has, in the eyes of many, delivered a direct blow to a beloved classic. But the backlash isn't limited to die-hard fans of the original film. Even those with no strong attachment to Snow White have raised concerns about its direction. Critics argue that the film prioritizes political correctness over storytelling, diluting the magic and wonder that made Snow White timeless. Instead of capturing the heart of the original, Disney appears more focused on making a statement about diversity and inclusion. While these efforts are commendable in the right context, some believe they come at the expense of the fairy tale's essence. It's clear that Snow White is a film caught between two opposing forces. On one hand, Disney wants to uphold its progressive values by pushing for diversity and modern themes. On the other, it seeks to honor the legacy of the original movie and satisfy longtime fans. The problem is that these two goals seem to be in direct conflict, and no matter how much Disney tries to balance them, it's becoming increasingly evident that Snow White simply won't be able to please everyone. Compounding the issue is the film's uncertain box office prospects. Early predictions suggest that Snow White could struggle financially, with some analysts forecasting an underwhelming performance. In response, Disney has noticeably scaled back its marketing efforts, with some speculating that the company is trying to minimize further damage. The abrupt cancellation of the UK premiere, originally planned as a major promotional event, has only fueled speculation about the film's troubled future. Ultimately, Snow White risks becoming a cautionary tale in Disney's history, a story of how a beloved classic was reimagined in a way that alienated audiences rather than bringing them together. Whether the film can defy the odds or will become another misstep in Disney's live-action strategy remains to be seen. In today's rapidly evolving cultural landscape, staying relevant is more challenging than ever, especially for a company like Disney, which has built its empire on timeless stories that span generations. But with the upcoming Snow White remake, Disney finds itself at a crossroads, caught between preserving the magic of its past and pushing forward with a more modernized vision. The backlash surrounding this film has been relentless. From early criticisms of casting choices to heated debates over creative decisions, Snow White has become a symbol of controversy before it has even hit theaters. And while Disney has faced criticism before, this time the stakes feel even higher. With every new controversy, Disney seems to be digging itself deeper into a hole, one that might be difficult to climb out of. The company has poured millions into reimagining Snow White, but will that investment pay off, or will it backfire spectacularly? There's a fine line between updating a classic for a new audience and stripping away what made it beloved in the first place. Has Disney crossed that line? That's the real question. For decades, Disney has thrived on nostalgia, reviving beloved characters and stories in ways that resonate with multiple generations. But as the company aggressively pushes for a redefined version of Snow White, many longtime fans are left wondering, is this an evolution of storytelling, or is it simply a case of forced modernization? Does changing a classic tale for the sake of progress actually improve it, or does it risk alienating the very audience that made it a cultural phenomenon in the first place? At what point does reinvention become unrecognizable? Disney's identity crisis is on full display with this project, and whether they realize it or not, Snow White may be the ultimate test of how far they're willing to go in their pursuit of relevance. No matter what happens, one thing is certain: this film will be talked about for years to come. Whether Snow White is ultimately remembered as a bold, groundbreaking reimagining or a misguided attempt to force modern narratives onto a beloved fairy tale will depend entirely on how audiences react. Will they embrace this new version, celebrating it as a fresh take on an old story? Or will they reject it outright, seeing it as yet another example of a studio losing touch with its core audience? At the end of the day, the audience decides what lives on and what gets left behind, and if early reactions are anything to go by, Snow White may be facing an uphill battle that even Disney's legendary marketing machine can't fix.